Today we're looking at Section 2 of Chapter 27, Nationalism in Africa as well as the Middle East. Specifically, how nationalism will impact the people in this region. That being said, key terms, apartheid. Miss Crane.
A policy of rigid segregation became law.
Very good. And again, with this, I want you guys to constantly have on there in Southern Africa. Specifically South Africa, the country, because that's where Nelson Mandela, maybe we've heard of him.
Yep.
Yes. That's where he's going to be coming in the picture eventually. Okay, Pan-Africanism. Lily?
Global calling on confidence in African culture.
Very good. Okay, emphasis on the unity of that as well. Okay, excellent. And in global is the key word there of pan, meaning world. Perfect. Negritude movement. Ms. Sackett?
The way writers show pride in their heritage.
Very good. Okay, specifically the traditional roots of these Africans and African Americans as well. I included Americans because we are obviously in the United States. Asia Minor. Ms. Preeny.
The Turkish Peninsula between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean Sea.
Very good. Pan-Arabism. Lily?
Movement in which Arabs sought to unite all Arabs into one state.
Very good. Shared heritage is the key idea there too. Okay. And then finally the Balfour Declaration. Ms. Smith.
British attempted to win the support of European Jews.
Perfect. Okay, by calling upon them and saying basically they will have a national homeland in Palestine. Okay, now that's going to cause some conflict with the Arabs or the Muslims. We're going to have those down there. Basically saying, wait a second, I don't understand. Okay, and we'll describe that here in a little bit. This will be available later, so we are going to keep moving. It's also available in your PR that you guys have already completed. Africans resist colonial rule. How did these two strands, colonial abuses and African resistance, play out in South Africa? Mr. Sullivan.
Africans were forced to work on plantations or in mines run by Europeans. All Africans carry identification cards, imposed the tax, and restricted where they could live or travel.
Very good. They were going to resist by forming political parties to protest. Okay, legal means the big idea there. We're not rioting. We're not causing a great wealth of conflict. It's legal protest. Nationalism and Africa for Africans. What did the Pan-African Congress look to accomplish? Or what did it actually accomplish? Ms. Reagan.
Preaching a forceful, appealing message of Africa for Africans and demanded an end to colonial rule.
Good. Unfortunately, we have this provision right here. Okay, we have a great wealth of progress here. A Charter of Rights for Africans, similar to, not quite as strong as, but similar to like a Constitution of Rights. Unfortunately, many Western powers are going to ignore it. Hashtag sad face. Okay. Establish cooperation among African and African American leaders, though. So we do have a unification component. So we are taking steps in the correct direction. How did Leopold Senghor and other writers in the Negritude movement foster pride in African culture? Mr. Schultz.
By rejecting the negative views of Africa spread by colonial rulers.
Very good. Okay. Constantly emphasizing cultural positivity. All right? Positive elements. Excellent things about Africans globally that make them unique and a special part of the global spectrum of humanity. Rejecting these ideas of negativity, of second-class citizenship, or even worse. Okay? Emphasizing positivity. And that's what we have here specifically in writers as well as in art as well. Okay? Turkey and Persia modernized. What were Ataturk's goals for Turkey? Ms. Rudd.
To modernize Turkey along Western line and separate religion from government.
Very good. Okay, now he's going to do this through the Treaty of Spurs. Make sure you have that. Modernize and westernize. He also wanted to separate religion and government, which is what Mr. Rudd just said. Okay, so he wants to basically model it, because if you analyze this, the goals that he has sounds kind of like what we already have as a country, yes?
Yeah.
So he just wants that whole method of westernizing. That's what he would like to do. And that's what he's going to try to do there. All right? That being said, what reforms did Ataturk make to reach his goal? Mr. Kaufman.
Replaced Islamic law with European model. Also replaced Muslim calendar with the Christian calendar. Moved the day of rest from Friday to Saturday. Closed religious schools. Forced people to wear Western clothes. Replaced the Arabic alphabet with Latin, and gave women the right to vote.
Perfect. A lot of things are going on here. Now, some of this you have to understand, people are going to be like, I don't know about all this just yet. Okay? But a lot of these are exceptionally positive. Specifically this last one, remove some of the restrictions placed on women as far as, being able to leave the house without the permission of the male figurehead, be that your father or be that your husband. Okay? Basically trying to bestow some component of infantile rights onto you, giving you the ability to do anything, almost. Okay? Replace Islamic laws with secular laws. Meaning, as far as the government is structured, he's trying to make it based more on openness and not just, if you're a Muslim, these are your laws, and we move on with it. If you're not a Muslim, these laws apply to you as well now. Okay? Schools are also, sacred schools are replaced with secular ones, like this. Separation of church and state. You're able to believe whatever you would like, and that's what makes America great, but we don't teach this necessarily in the classroom. That's the idea he has here. Turkish alphabet to the Latin-based one. Now, why would he do that? Alex?
Aren't a lot of languages based off of Latin?
The
So it'd be easier to learn languages and stuff.
Absolutely. And communicate globally, absolutely. Okay, most of your languages are Latin-based. English, okay, Spanish, Portuguese, all of these are Latin-based languages. That being said, if you're familiar with that, you can then communicate with those people more easily than struggling to make translations every time you travel. How do you think people would react to these sweeping changes? Alex?
Not very well. They probably resist quite a bit.
Okay, so some will resist. Make sure you guys have that down. Some. Typically, what portion of society? Alex?
The elders.
The elders, very good. Some, the older people, or elders, resist. Anyone going to love this, though?
The younger generation.
The younger generations. How about the majority of women? Okay? Absolutely. So the younger generations, majority of women, because again, not all. If you've lived for decades, you're an older woman, you've lived for decades, and you know this as your life, you yourself will probably resist all these changes, saying, well, that's just not how we're supposed to be raised. Maybe some of your grandparents say that about how certain things are ran in your life now. Okay? It's just not normal to them, therefore it's foreign and frightening. And that's the same theory here with your the elders in society. Okay. How did the Paris Peace Conference affect Arabs? Schultz.
They felt like they were betrayed by the West, and they got angry and had protests and revolts.
Very good. So instead of these positive things, such as independence that they were promised, most of their lands, or some of their lands at least, are placed under mandates. Okay, what are mandates? You guys remember that term?
Mandates were
Post-World War I. So they're mandates of European powers. So who's in control of their land? The Europeans. Very good. So instead of them gaining independence and their own nation, their land has just changed hands, and now they're in control by a different European nation than they already were. So you can see if you're promised independence by assisting France, Great Britain, or even Germany in this war, and then it's never forthcoming, how excited are you about a new leader? Not at all. Not at all. You still want independence, and that's the problem that we have going on here. That being said, how did the Balfour Declaration further undermine Pan-Arabism? Keeping this mindset, now we're applying it a little bit differently. Miss Rady.
The Arabs felt betrayed by the West, and the British attempted to win the support of European Jews by issuing the Balfour Declaration, and thus undermining the idea of setting up a national home for Jewish people in Palestine.
Very good. So this national home in Palestine is being promised to these Jews is also going to upset the Arabs or the Muslims in the region already. Now this conflict, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the very existence of Israel as a country post-World War II caused a great wealth of conflict in the Middle East. And the key word here is today. You guys can see this conflict that still exists today. It's not a very peaceful portion of the world. All right? But again, it is something that we work with. All right. Describe how African nationalism grew after World War I. Donahue.
Pan-Africanism, which nourished nationalist spirit. Negative movement, it raised pride. Pan-Africanism Congress established cooperation between African leaders and not receiving freedoms and rights from European nations. African nationalism takes place.
Perfect. So we have all of these promises and significant movements taking place. And it ultimately boils down to confidence and pride in one's culture. Okay? Now when you have pride and confidence in your own culture, that leads to nationalism, just like Ms. Donahue told us. Excellent job. Explain how nationalism helped Turkey and Iran modernize. Mr. Welch.
Ataturk and Khan built factories, roads, and railroads, strengthened the army, and replaced Islamic law with secular law. They started politics, technology, and education to reform the government.
Very good. Our two countries here, Ataturk's in control of
Turkey.
Very good. And then Khan, Iran. That way you guys can see the connection here. Excellent job. Both of these two gentlemen recognize that they have a distinct opportunity to pull their nation into the global spectrum here. They're going to go about that by westernizing these specific fields. Okay? Finally, summarize the goals of Arab nationalists. Mr. Hartman.
Sought to free Arabs from foreign domination, unite them in their own state, separate kingdoms in the Middle East around Palestine, which increases tensions between the Jewish community and the Arabs. Zionism, 1919 to 1940.
Very good. So we have this calling for separate kingdoms in one area. Here again is where we have that component of that Balkan powder keg. Different location, different cultures. Okay? That Balfour Declaration is going to upset the Muslims because it's promising a national homeland in the territory they're already occupying. That being said, Zionism, which is basically that cultural component, that religious component, that movement of pride as far as Jews, will take place between 1919 and 1940, making this conflict even more escalated. And then certainly after World War II and the Holocaust takes place, it'll be escalated further with the creation of the sovereign nation of Israel. Any questions? No. Perfect. Here are your assignments. 27.2 QREV. Peer tutors are bringing those out now. The next PR terms are on 865. 3 through 5 on 867.